Sylacauga, and the Childersburg Chapel on Highway 280 in Childersburg for pre-need funerals, burials, cremation since 1975. Call 256-245-4361. Locations in Childersburg on Highway 280 and on Highway 21 North in Sylacauga, Talladega Highway, you'll find the North Chapel, Curtis and Son Funeral Home. Sylacauga, Childersburg, pre-need to at-need funeral services, funerals, burials, or cremation since 1975. It's Curtis and Son Funeral Home, 256-245-4361. Funeral service for David John Sr., age 72, will be today at noon from Radley Smith Funeral Home Chapel with Brother Donald Grice officiating. Burial in the Hollins Cemetery. Mr. Johns died Monday at Princeton Baptist Medical Center. He was a graduate of B.B. Comer High School and loved his Tigers, that is for sure. Visitation was yesterday. Radley Smith Funeral Home in Sylacauga in charge of the arrangements. James Lee Skip Dupree Jr. Died on August 1st. Funeral service for Skip will be today. Pastor Sam Williamson will officiate Mr. Dupree's funeral services at 11 o'clock this morning at Canterbury United Methodist Church in Mountain Brook. Now, visitation will be an hour prior to the service from 10 until 11 in the church parlor. Graveside services later today, officiated by Reverend Bill Brown, will be at Evergreen Memorial Cemetery at 3 p.m. In lieu of flowers, a family request contribution be made to the Canterbury United Methodist Church in Mountain Brook or the First United Methodist Church of Sylacauga. In other obituary news this morning, funeral service for Victor Reese will be Saturday morning at 11 a.m. from Community Funeral Home in Sylacauga. Burial in the New Hope Church Cemetery. Visitation at the funeral home today from 1 until 7. Community Funeral Home Sylacauga directing. Graveside funeral service for Mr. Clyde Fuller will be Saturday, August 13th at 1 o'clock from Harper Spring Church Cemetery in Sylacauga. Visitation 1 until 7 today at the funeral home. Community Funeral Home directing. And funeral service for Roderick Lee will be Saturday at 1 p.m. from Mount Olive Baptist Church in Childersburg with burial in the Tallahatchie Church Cemetery of Childersburg. Visitation today at the funeral home from 1 until 7. Community Funeral Home Sylacauga directing. And Mr. Reginald Dates died August the 11th. Funeral arrangements to be announced as well by Community Funeral Home. Funeral service for Mr. Ralph Peavy will be noon Saturday in the Chapel of Wright's Funeral Home in Alexander City. Interment in the Mount Zion Baptist Church Cemetery, Wright's Funeral Home directing. Memorial service for Mr. Michael Ray Goodwin, age 67 of Alexander City, will be Sunday, August 14th at 3 o'clock from the Chapel of Radley Funeral Home. Brother Miles Crouch officiating. The family receiving friends Sunday 2 until 2:45. That's 2 until 2:45 at the funeral home, Radley Funeral Home, Alexander City directing. And the funeral service for Mrs. Shirley Glenn Shelton, age 82 of Alexander City, will be tomorrow, Saturday at 11 a.m. from Perfect Peace Baptist Church at 2324 6th Street Extension in Alexander City. Visitation today, 4 until 7 at the funeral home. Armours Memorial Funeral Home directing. Memorial service for Mr. Robert David Childs, age 95 of Alexander City, will be 1 o'clock Sunday, August 14th at Perfect Peace Baptist Church. Final arrangements entrusted to Armours Memorial Funeral Home. Homegoing celebration remembering the life of Mr. James Mayfield Evans, age 75 of Talladega, will be Saturday at 1 o'clock from First Baptist Church in Cropwell. The Reverend Daniel Johnson officiating. Interment immediately following in the church cemetery. Public viewing for Mr. Evans is today from 3 till 7 at the funeral home, S.M. Goodson Funeral Home and Crematory in Talladega, in charge of the arrangements. This obituary report this morning, courtesy of Curtis and Son Funeral Home, the North Chapel on Highway 21 in Sylacauga, and the Childersburg Chapel on Highway 280 in Childersburg. 256-245-4361 for pre-need to at-need funeral services, funerals, burials, cremation since 1975. It's Curtis & Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childers.